Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? I trust everyone is well. How are you? Yes. Um, Sorry about last week when I was not able to do the live on comorbidities, which are week 3 topic. Well, there were some other things happening, so hence I was unable to have that talk last week. So I postponed it to this week, and so I will begin straight away. And I know, sorry, it's been short notice, so please just catch up because I think this week we're going to do possibly 3 videos to cover comorbidities. To begin with, I will be talking about the definition. What are comorbidities? When we say comorbidities, what is it we're saying? So I'm getting the definition from the Cambridge Dictionary. The fact that people who have a disease or a condition also have one or more other diseases or conditions. And with autism, we can also call them co-occurring conditions. So what we mean is having autism plus another condition at the same time. So it's co-occurring. It's occurring at the same time. It's happening at the same time. This video today is actually really important for you to learn what are some of the co-occurring conditions that can happen with autism, because some people may not be very familiar with some of the characteristics of autism. But then when we add another condition, it makes it very confusing. So it would be important to be able to now identify that someone has autism and then what else may be affecting them. So you'll be able to distinguish and treat and have, seek treatment for that individual on time. Okay. I've put 2 references on the notes on this video. So that's basically where I was extracting some of my my notes for today. And the one that's on raising children states that nearly 3/4 of autistic children have another medical condition or psychiatric condition. Okay, so nearly 3/4 of the number of autistic children may have an additional condition that is not autism, but something else on top. So it is really important to identify and have these conditions either treated or the support that's required in order to make that situation more comfortable or better for the individual, right? Okay. So the first one I'm going to talk about is anxiety. Anxiety. I don't know what anxiety is in Shona. I don't know how to translate anxiety to Shona. But some of the symptoms of anxiety include tension, restlessness, kusagadzikana. When you see a child like really restless, and it's something that happens often. Let me put a disclaimer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I am basically just doing some research and sharing with you some of the things in order for you to then go and research some of these things by yourself, or maybe something might something might just light up and say, oh, actually I think this might be happening to my child or something like that, and then you look further into it, and when you look further into it, you'll be able to now take action, seek the necessary help that you might need, or that you might need to help the individual. Okay. So restlessness is kusagadzikana. Hyperactivity. It's like settled. Sometimes our children can become very hyperactive, and that may be a result of anxiety. Worry, fear. Um, I want to give you an example. Worry and fear can indicate anxiety in our children. For example, you may have a child who is afraid. Let's say you take them to the park and you want them to go on the swing or on the seesaw or the slides, but then they tense up. They are afraid. You can literally see the fear in them that they will not go on that swing. And then you're puzzled. Why doesn't my son want to go on the swing? But your son has a phobia, a fear of the swing. That is what I'm talking about, anxiety. That is an additional, a comorbid, if I'm speaking it correctly, a comorbidity that can occur at the same time with autism. Um, then there's fear of TV characters, cartoon characters, or something that just may scare the child. Fear of animals, you know. Sometimes the anxiety will show up in your child in the form of stimming. I don't know if you've heard of stimming. STIMMING. Stimming it can be shown through things like head banging, when a child is banging their head on a hard surface or injuring themselves. That's what we call self-injurious behavior. Kuzvikwadza, kuzvirova, kuzvikwadza, to really hurting themselves. Another sign of stimming is having trouble sleeping. No, sorry, I'm going to correct myself. No, I'm just reading from here. Stimming, yeah, it's self-stimulating behavior. It could be repetitive or an unusual body movement. Sorry, the words are going to be a bit hard here because some of these terms are from the medical field. So it's unusual body movements or noises like the humming, hand flickering, finger mannerisms, finger flicking, hand flapping, rocking back and forth. Sometimes our children will be like, just rocking back and forth, or even while standing or while sitting. And then another sign of anxiety could be a child having trouble sleeping. So there are many signs that could show anxiety, although I've just mentioned some, which could explain when a child is anxious. And depending on the source, it's 40 to 60% of autistic kids have anxiety, depending on the source that you read. And sometimes also our children become anxious. They call it social anxiety. So when they come into a social setting and they have difficulties to express themselves, they become uneasy, they become unsettled in a social setting. So they can become anxious. And how is anxiety treated? Sometimes, it's just okay. Let me start with the treatment that is stated in raisingchildren.net. Behavior therapies, CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapy, relaxation techniques. Sometimes it could be medical, so you have to consult a doctor. But these are just what is in the textbook. Sometimes it's also a matter of you taking an initiative in the real life situation that you are in. Because not all the time is anxiety diagnosed like from a medical professional. So sometimes it's just about you taking an initiative to be regularly interactive with your child, to expose your child to other young children to make friends, or just to even play along or play with or alongside them, to have that contact with other people, not to be in isolation. So some of the things you can do, and even just interesting age appropriate activities, things like that, they can actually help to, you know, help to prevent a child becoming anxious, or just to make a child familiar. So you just try a range of things as well, because it's not all the time when you are going to have a medical treatment, and it's not all the medical treatments that actually um, for 100% are proven to work. It's also in some cases trial and error. So this is a situation where we're literally helping each other. When it comes to autism, sometimes people just don't know how to actually address certain situations. So I'm going to just move on. So you can research more on anxiety as a comorbid condition that can happen at the same time as autism. I'm going to talk about bipolar disorder. I'm not an expert in bipolar disorder, and I haven't had much experience with bipolar disorder. But from my studying, it's a psychiatric condition, also known as manic depression. So it's like having highs, mania, and having the extreme lows, which are depression. And then depression can be seen by low mood, low motivation, trouble sleeping, poor appetite. Mania can be seen by extreme self-esteem, less need or sleep, more talking, higher activity levels than usual. And there could be big changes between a high mood and a low mood and behavior. There's trouble paying attention, sitting still, behaving appropriately. And then the thing about bipolar disorder, hold on one second. Some autistic symptoms are commonly found in mood and anxiety disorder, and that can cause some confusion. And also, there's not much research available as to how common bipolar is in children. Treatment is usually long-term, usually involves medication and behavior treatments. And as I said, I'm not that great in bipolar. I think that one you'd have to research it yourself. Then there's clinical depression. I'm just going to sweep through that one fast as well. Symptoms include low mood, poor sleep, appetite, irritability, loss of motivation. In children, depression symptoms can also be like a cranky mood rather than sadness, and a low mood. Studies show it as one of the most common, actually, comorbid conditions in ASD, autism. And it happens more in high-functioning individuals during adolescence, when individuals develop greater insight into differences from others. So when your child gets older, it's possible that they could start noticing the differences with other children, and that could be a cause of a depression. And then presentation of depression depends on the level of cognitive functioning in the individual. So again, on depression, I think you can also identify depression in your child. Do more research on that, but it is a co-occurring condition that could happen at the same time as autism. And it would need to be addressed, to try to obviously help your child. How is depression treated? Normally, CBT, talking therapies, medication, psychotherapy. Yeah, okay. But another thing I would suggest is to promote things like play, because listen, when you have a child who's nonverbal, how are you going to know that they're depressed? How will you know that your child is depressed if they cannot tell you that they're depressed? So this is the part where, as the parent or the person who's looking after your child, you always keep an eye on what's happening with your child. You have to notice the behaviors. Try and study your child and see, I think my child might be depressed. Your child might be bored. there's no point keeping your child indoors all day. You never take your child out. You never take them out to play. You don't promote play. You don't promote interaction or activities suitable. And then your child becomes like stuck on one corner of the sofa, and you can't spend a whole day like that without engaging with your child, even talking to your child, even if they're not going to talk back, especially when they're nonverbal. Try interacting with them. Just they will engage. Eye contact. You're trying to get that eye contact as well, to promote eye contact. All interaction is actually shown that it actually helps to improve interaction, to improve that engagement. And these are some of the things that you can do to address depression, like even the early stages. You just want to keep your child engaged. It's just a simple thing, really. Sometimes, like you even yourself, if you spend the whole day, you don't talk to anyone, you don't have friends, you're gonna get bored, you're gonna get depressed. So what do? You just find something interesting to do. It's the same thing. Just find something to do, find someone to talk to, find something interesting. So it's the same thing with some of our autistic children. Just keep them engaged in something interesting. Try to promote interaction. Try to engage them in play, age-appropriate activities. Um, Take them somewhere, or expose them to friends or other people. You have to be very creative. Sometimes you have to also use your initiative, and then you can take it from there. But if you have major concerns about depression, then it may then be a situation where you have to consult the professionals. Okay. Right, so I'm just gonna sweep through that one, and I'm gonna talk about Down syndrome. Down syndrome um, can actually occur with autism. Some children who have Down syndrome actually have autism as well. Um, Down syndrome is a genetic disorder. You can research it more, because I'm just doing them briefly because there's quite a lot, and yeah, it might take some days to complete these. So most people have 23 pairs of chromosomes. That now we're going into what, biology or science. So 23 pairs of chromosomes, and researchers know that Down syndrome is caused by an extra chromosome called trisomy 21. Autism is relatively common in children who have Down syndrome, and up to 40% of children with Down syndrome are also autistic. Some of the characteristics of Down syndrome, I'm sure you are familiar with Down syndrome. Some of the characteristics are facial features, developmental delays, intellectual disabilities, poor muscle tone, potential hearing and vision problems, congenital heart defects. Yeah, and then obviously there are some tests that are run to find out if someone has Down syndrome, etc. In Zimbabwe, there's need for attention for Down syndrome. There is an organization in Zimbabwe. Where is it? There is an organization in Zimbabwe called Zimbabwe Down Syndrome Association. I think it's based in Bulawayo. I'm sure you can find other organizations online and on Facebook if you want to find out what's happening regarding Down syndrome. You want to find out more in what's happening regarding Down syndrome in Zimbabwe. So you could also check on their websites, on social media platforms, etc. That's the Zimbabwe Down Syndrome Association. There is a reference I'm going to put. Sorry, I think I forgot to put that reference on something, on an article by the Zimbabwean Down Syndrome Association. I'll put that at the end of this video for you, and then you can have a look at some of the things there. So I'm gonna go straight to the next one. It's brain fog. Brain fog. I think this one happens even to me, like as we get older, sometimes we become forgetful, like we just start forgetting stuff. I think it's brain fog. But then when we're talking about brain fog as a comorbid condition of autism, it's a constellation of symptoms including reduced cognition, inability to concentrate and multitask, as well as a loss of short and long-term memory, easily forgetting, and it can be present in people with autism. But we don't know like the prevalence. We don't know how many people are affected with brain fog that have autism. So the next one is a very crucial one, I think, gastrointestinal symptoms. This one, I think you may want to pay attention because this one is one of the big ones. Gastrointestinal, I'll call it GI. Let's just make it GI. It's simpler. So gastrointestinal, GI, or the gut or the stomach. That's gastrointestinal. Most common in autism is very, very common. Now, the signs, symptoms of that: constipation, abdominal pain, diarrhea, fecal incontinence, reflux, acid reflux, bloating are the problems associated with the gut or the stomach. Now, I'm sure that some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or maybe something has just come alight, like, oh, I'm sure that's what it is. Now, it is linked, linked with most of it. Let me just read that part. Yes, the GI symptoms are linked with more severe autism characteristics and behavior problems. Now, don't be surprised as to sometimes your child may have serious behavior problems because they may be having problems in their gut. They may be having severe pain. Excuse me. They may be having severe pain in their gut. Sometimes they'll be able to tell you, but if they are non-verbal, they will not be able to tell you that they are having pains in their stomach. Now, it's up to you. You are going to have to be the one who will monitor. You have to monitor their amount of times they open their bowel, the amount of time yavanoenda kutoilet, the amount of time yavanovhura mudumbu, the amount of times they open their bowel and pass a stool. You are going to be the one who then monitors the type of stool, whether it's solid. Now I'm going into, like, let's talk about like a bit of nursing, a bit of this. A lot of Zimbabweans are familiar with what I'm saying because many do nursing. They know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. So I don't want you to think that I'm saying things that are not appropriate. This is very appropriate because I'm actually talking about the GI, the gut problems. So you have, as a parent, and you want to find out what's happening. For example, if your child is non-verbal, it's easier when your child is verbal. But if your child is non-verbal, you need to know this because you need to be the one to then monitor how well are they passing in the toilet? Are they opening their bowels? Are they passing their stools? Are they solid stools? Are they watery? There's a whole chart. I hope let me write that down. The stool chart. Sorry, I need to put that on the references. I need to put that for you, for some people who may not be familiar with that, so you will know that it's important to then monitor what type of stool your child is passing. And in another instance, your child may go for weeks without opening their bowel. They may go for a long period of time without opening their bowel. then you need to know that there's a problem. That must concern you because there could be problems. The constipation may be building up inside, and yeah, you don't want problems to then create other problems inside the bowel, inside the gut of your child, inside the whole passage, the whole passage for to empty out the bowels. You don't want the bowels to then stretch. There's so many things that can happen in the bowel if it's left untreated, is basically what I am saying. So in some cases, if you feel that your child is constipated and they have not opened their bowels even for a week or for longer, then you need to seek medical help. Or I don't know what you have. Some people may have alternatives. I don't know. I'm not directing you into any alternative things, etc. But I'm just saying that there needs to be some way to then get help to be able to get the right things or the medicines to open up the gut, the stomach, because this is very important. It will affect the behavior of your child because they are restless, they're in pain, they are in discomfort, they're uncomfortable. Let me say that, uncomfortable. Um, and then if we look at the medical perspective, they don't really know why children who have autism often have um, gastrointestinal problems. They don't really know. They assume certain things. But then if we look at the biomedical perspective, you'll find that they have a lot of studies, etc. Things like gut bacteria issues, things like increased gut permeability, or what we call leaky gut. That term is not there in the medical perspective, but it's in the biomedical perspective, leaky gut. So there is need for attention to all these things because our children are being left out. They are being left to then suffer with all these conditions because they cannot get the best treatment in some cases, you see. Then there's it can also be known as what the problems that may cause the GI problems. So I'm just going to add, I said leaky gut, um, longer food transit time. That could be another reason. Um, that's longer food transit time through the gut, low fiber. So all these issues, gut bacteria, increased gut permeability, leaky gut, long food transition time in the gut, low fiber. So food may be leaking. If the stomach lining, right, may start having like cracks, and then food starts leaking into the body instead of going and passing through and then distributing itself properly. So what's happening is the digestion process may not be occurring properly. So in a situation like this, I will recommend you seek professional help. Go to the pediatric um, the pediatricians who know about the stomach. They should be able to um, it to check, to do all the checks on your child, and then tell you, like, maybe they may prescribe you medications. They give laxatives, that not just the over-the-counter laxatives. I don't recommend you just buying over-the-counter laxatives. If it's a condition that's that serious, just get the right type of laxatives from the doctor. Let them subscribe you with correct um, medications. Um, and then also just check to see if this is working and give as recommended by your doctor. And hopefully that could reduce the impact in the bowel and allow your child to be free. I know there are other herbal means. People like tea, the ones that teas that help constipation. I know there's this Indian tea I drink for detoxing. That tea is a laxative. It's an organic tea. It's a laxative. If you drink it in a few hours, you'll be going to the loo. And yeah, that so if you don't want to go through the medical, but I wouldn't recommend if your child has a really serious problem. There's sometimes when you have to go when you really should, because you might cause a serious problem for your child if you don't get the medicals involved. But then if it's just some other times, you get the tea, some teas are very effective. I'm sure in Zimbabwe, we've got lots of nice tea that can really help to open up the bowels and those sort of things. So autistic kids and children with other developmental delays have more gastrointestinal symptoms than other children. If you did not know, that is the fact. That is a fact. Uh, so yes, there is pain-induced behavior. You will notice that caused by the gut, discomfort, indigestion, and gut issues. So the treatment I did mention to you is that seek medical help, and they will prescribe you the right laxatives. Um, and in some cases, there may be discussions, or you might be recommended to do a gluten and casein-free diet. So now you're seeking the dietitian as well. Remember, the dietitians can also be involved. So in some cases, they test your child to see if they have food sensitivities, allergies, intolerances, food intolerances, um, and yeah, and they will also advise you for your child to exercise, to do things that keep them fit. Jumping, it can be fun. Even just running, it can be fun, but it is exercise, and that can be something your dietitian or even your doctor can recommend. So really look into that. If you didn't know that, maybe you may not have even noticed, and you just didn't know that something like your child was having stomach problems. So I mean, it's important to really observe your child, and just in case that was what was the problem, right? And always check how often they are going to the bathroom, the toilet. Yeah. I'm going to go from that straight into eating disorders. So if you want to research on the ones I've mentioned so far, please do that. Eating disorders is another problem that can happen together with autism. We've got things like anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, avoidant restrictive food intake disorder. I'll say that again. Avoidant restrictive food intake disorder, and that's given a short name. That's ARFID. So this ARFID is very common in our autistic children. Our autistic children are picky eaters, and this I've noticed even in my kids. Very common, very, very common. When it comes to food, they pick what they want to eat. They won't eat everything. They'll eat what they want to eat. Um, they have preferences. So what happens is it limits the variety of food that they eat basically. Many autistic children do this. Many autistic people do this, and sometimes it's because they have a fear of choking, or they have a fear of vomiting. Some of them eat slowly, slow eating. Some of them just select food for no reason. Sometimes we hear of things like texture, food texture, or how you place the food in the plate, or how you cut the food, or how you cook the food, or the temperature of the food. Remember in my other video, I told you about my son wanting only warm food. He doesn't want cold food. He wants warm drinks as well. He doesn't like cold drinks. So yeah, so there's so many things when it comes to food. Sometimes your autistic child can gather food. They can eat with their hands and they gather food on the side of the plate. So they'll maybe this is a piece of what bread or something. Then they just bite this part, and then this part is put on the side. Vanoruma one side. Side rimwe rorongedzwa roiswa paside pakona peplate, paside peplate, pakona peplate. Plates are around. It doesn't have a corner. So yeah, basically they will eat and then they'll just leave portions of food. So you find it's a pile of half-eaten food on the plate, making it very difficult. Say you want to go into a restaurant and then this is how sometimes you start thinking twice about going to a restaurant. All these things happen. But so yeah, that is an eating disorder. And I'm not saying that everything needs to you need to seek professional help. In sometimes that's just the behavior. That's just try to teach your child, like, look, try to eat like this, try to eat like this. That's the best you can do. Some things you don't really need to go to the doctor. Doctors they won't have all the answers for you. So sometimes when you have a child with autism, things like selective food, as long as they don't have the gut problems, as long as they are not having deficiencies, you're going to have to try to increase their food palette. You're going to have to try to encourage them to eat vegetables. You're going to have to try to get them to eat a healthy diet, the protein, what you geez, I'm forgetting what the healthy. Okay, the vegetables, the meats, the starch, the carbohydrates, you have to get it all. Yeah, you have to get it all. You have to try your very best to get your child to eat, as much as possible. My son, we went through that phase where he stopped eating meat completely. He would not touch meat. Before you eat chicken like whoop, 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 but then he stopped. He's like, he not even a drop of, not even a bite of meat. All he wanted was rice, white rice in the morning for breakfast because he has to go to school. Rice in the afternoon, rice in the evening. But we broke that cycle. We broke because we kept on just giving him something, trying to break that cycle. So we brought in the green vegetables. My vegetable green. I know it mashija, the leaf one, the leafy ones. So cut those, fry them in some oil, and then the tad bit of salt, and then so it was now rice and green vegetable. So the green vegetable he was eating like his life depended. He loved it. So slowly now we brought another type of greens. Then we brought sweet potato, sweet mbambaira. Then he would love the mbambaira, the sweet potato. He eat that. So now we have rice, green vegetable, sweet potato. Then we slowly try to bring back the meat now. We saw and other things we've just been so some of the things yes, and some of the things no. Cauliflower. Other day, I like my Korean food as well. I took the cauliflower and I put it in a batter. Like when you put meat in a batter and then you fry, and then after that you put it in a sauce, like a marinade sauce. It's like meat. It's like chicken. It's nice. So he ate all of it. And I'm like, So I've been stressing, like, what can this child eat? What can this child? Well, he eats a lot of things. You're going to have to be creative in order for your child to have a best balanced diet possible. Because some of the things he would have eaten before, he doesn't want to eat them anymore. And his palate keeps on wanting certain things. So he won't eat certain things, but he'll eat other things. So now he's back. He does eat meat, but he's very selective as well. And he's also selective sometimes how you prepare the meat. At one time, he didn't want stew. He wanted fried meat or oven roasted meat. So it's exhausting. As a parent, you're up to here, but you have to carry. You cannot give up. You cannot give up. Make it a song. I cannot give up. I cannot. You will cry, you will pray, you will scream, even that you will go like, God, you cannot give up. You can't. You have to keep going. So that's eating disorders. I know if things like anorexia, I'm not an expert in that field. I would recommend you seek medical help, some of the online resources that may be available for things like anorexia. Okay. So yeah, dietitian treatment for eating disorders. Yeah, seek the dietitian, the nutritionist, the doctor. Encourage healthy eating. Try new recipes. Encourage. Trial and error. Keep trying, and don't give up. There's an organization called the Butterfly Foundation. Butterfly, like a butterfly foundation. I think it's an Australian organization to do with eating disorders. You can just check that out. Right. Where are we? There's another one called Inside Out Institute. Inside Out Institute. That's also an Australian one to do with eating disorder research and clinical institute. Yeah, okay. And then since we are talking about the gut and stuff, I'm going to talk about vitamin disorders. Vitamin disorders. Vitamin disorders. Vitamin D. Vitamin D is one of the high rates of vitamin D deficiency. There's a high rate of vitamin D deficiencies in children with autism. So vitamin D, if you're in Zimbabwe, this is probably statistics from this western side. In Zimbabwe, you have a lot of sunlight. You have a lot of sun. So I don't know. I don't really think this one would really affect much because a lot of people in Zimbabwe will have vitamin D automatically. We're exposed to so much sun. It's like when you're in the West, in the UK, that's when you don't have enough sun or vitamin D. Your food in Zimbabwe, the tomatoes you buy, the vegetables, the fruits, all sun-kissed, all, the vitamins would be vitamin D. Shouldn't be a problem there. Then vitamin B12. Vitamin B12. This research has found B12 levels in the brain tissue of autistic children 3 times lower than those of the brain tissue of kids without autism. So yeah, I think if you're gonna start looking into the vitamins, get advice from a nutritionist or someone or a biomedical professional. They are more open to having this type of conversation with you, and then they will be able to recommend the best type of vitamins. Because on the market, there's all sorts of things that are being sold these days. You want to make sure that you're giving your child the correct dosage of whatever type of supplements that you may, if they require it, So obviously you may have to go through the tests first, the blood test to see the levels, the vitamin levels. What is your child deficient? There are some places that can do these tests for you. You have to do your research online, and then you'll be able to see, what the outcome is. Vitamin B9, folic acid. Some studies improved certain symptoms of autism, such as sociability, verbal, proverbal, cognitive language, receptive language, and emotional expression and communication. Things like vitamin A, zinc, magnesium, calcium. You have to do all that research yourself. Vitamin A, zinc, magnesium, and calcium. There is an American doctor who specializes in autism. I can't remember his name. I need to check on that. Maybe I'll put that as well. Let me just write that down. American doctor reference. American doctor. So you can see he creates the supplements. He creates supplements and he recommends. But I think it's best to have your dietitian, your professional nutritionist, or your expert, the one who's qualified, right? Work with them and see you know, whether they can do the tests first and what they would recommend, etc., before you jump and start buying all sorts of supplements. And some kids may not tolerate some supplements. You will damage, you hurt your kids if you give them something that, you know, wasn't prescribed by someone who really knows what they're doing, you know. You don't want to just try all these what's this the one, what's that, you know, the marijuana oil, what do you call it, the herb, the oil, the what's the word, sorry, you know the one I'm talking about. Some of those things, if you want to try that, and then you'll see your child reacting. So don't just give things that you just hear online. And you know, you have to do the research, and you have to work with the professional. And then if that when the tests are concluded and you know for sure that your child is deficient in XYZ, then that person will then tell you maybe you should get this supplement. Even supplements, you should get them, you know, properly recommended to you, not just trying and trial and error on your child, because that can cost the health of your child as well. You can actually harm your child. You can overdose your child with some supplements. Supplements, yes, some supplements. Okay, now I'm going to talk about where am I on time? Let me just go on with one more, two more actually. Epilepsy and seizures. I know a lot of autistic kids who have problems with epilepsy and seizures. Um, yeah, so that's another co-occurring condition that can happen. Apparently, 1 in 4 children with autism develop seizures, either from early childhood or adolescence. Another reference says 20 to 30% of autistic people have epilepsy. Seizures are most common in under fives and teenagers. So epilepsy is the name of a range of brain conditions where a child has or is at risk of having repeated and unpredictable seizures because of abnormal activity in the brain. The abnormal electrical activity in the brain causes odd sensations and abnormal movements or behavior. These are called convulsions or seizures. And when a child has a seizure, there's usually a temporary period of unconsciousness, a body convulsion, unusual movement, or staring spells. And in Zimbabwe, I think there is an organization called the Epilepsy Support Foundation in Zimbabwe. Um, right. I think you have to seek medical help for things like epilepsy if you live in Zimbabwe, or wherever, which part of the world you live in, obviously, because the treatment for that would be things like anti-epileptic medication, and other things that the medical professionals will recommend to you. Then another thing that's recommended is good quality sleep for the individual, and avoid stressful situations, and then the other epilepsy resources online. So you can research more on that. Another comorbid condition, you know what, I think I'm going to leave it here. So we'll continue tomorrow. I don't want to lose your attention. So tomorrow we're going to start from Fragile X. We're going to also talk about sleep problems and more. So I'll see you again tomorrow, not tomorrow, possibly, if not tomorrow, it might be Thursday. So I'll see if I could then talk about the rest of the comorbidities. It's important to know that the co-occurring conditions that can occur with autism. And I want to thank you for your attention today, and please share with those who you feel may need to hear this. Okay, thank you so much, and goodbye.